If you want Colts talk all year long, you're in the right place.
Fires upfield into the end zone. It is caught. Jelani Woods, touchdown. He's going to fire upfield. It's broken up. Tipped and intercepted by the Colts.
This is the official Colts Podcast, giving you an updated look at what's new with the Horseshoes.
Colts have it. Interception. 2 seconds left, and the Colts are going to win.
In the Indiana Union Construction Industry radio studio, let's get the podcast started.
The NFL regular season is here, finally. Oh my gosh, it's only taken 1,200 years from last January to early September here now. And welcome back to the official Colts Podcast, brought to you by WynnBET. Larra Overton along, JJ Stankevitz. I'm Matt Taylor. We're broadcasting on all the normal platforms, right? Colts.com, the Colts Audio Network, the Colts mobile app, anywhere you get your podcasts. But we're also live, video, in person, name with a face. Larra Overton, welcome to YouTube podcasting.
Well, it's great to be here. Yeah, this is fun. This is I feel like we need beverages or refreshments or something here. It's like we're hanging out in your living room. It's our own version of the Manning cast.
We need
it's
the
Maytay cast.
The Maytay cast.
Yeah,
I'm in.
I mean, the trajectory is only up, right? We'll get there.
Hey, they said
for sure.
They're doing a third guest on the Manning cast. Is that you?
Well, if it is, that's news to me. I don't know. Who is it? Do we know?
No, they haven't announced it yet.
Holy smokes, we got time.
They were teasing it.
Oh, my gosh. Well, like I said, football is finally here. There's different waves of football coming back. We say that all the time, right? In the spring, the OTAs, the mandatory mini camp, we say football's back. Well, kind of not really, right? We still have a ways to go. Training camp, preseason games, but no, football is officially back.
Yeah, that's just the appetizers that they trickle out before you get to your meal. Before you get to the steak, it's the shrimp cocktail, and a little Caesar salad,
they're leading
and some
you
bread.
up.
My problem is then
now bring me the filet.
Yeah, but it's not. Look, I'm a guy who fills up on the charcuterie board before the good stuff comes out. I can't do this. That's totally different. This is you just threw out some Ritz crackers, and we're here, have Ritz crackers.
It's Lunchable.
Yeah, you throw out Lunchables for your charcuterie board, and now we're into the real
Maybe
stuff
a snack
here.
Pack.
It is a perfectly cut, seared steak with no ranch, mind
there you go. You did it.
This
You did the bit.
Week 1 of the NFL regular season. We had that weird week of the end of the preseason before the regular season, but it is full steam ahead. So we are loaded up today on this podcast, as always, as we said, brought to you by WynnBET. We're going to talk about our bold predictions, and we're keeping receipts. So if you're wrong for the next 18 weeks, Larra, we're gonna hammer you. We're gonna let you know.
The entire YouTube audience will hold us accountable in the comments. I'm sure.
You have to know everything that's going to happen for this Colts season right now for the next 3-4 months.
Is this also a crystal ball? Can I?
Yeah, please.
Please.
Yeah.
Turn it over.
It says maybe. Things are in your favor.
Try again
right there.
later.
Yeah. Also, Kenny Albert is going to join us, the longtime play-by-play man for Fox. He's been there every single year that Fox has had rights to NFL games. He's called over 475 games play-by-play-wise for Fox. He's going to be on the call on Sunday, Colts and Jaguars at Lucas Oil Stadium. So as a play-by-play guy, really looking forward to that conversation.
I could tell you geeked out on that.
I did.
A little bit.
I did.
That was good. Yeah.
We kind of shared in that preparation and spotting charts and all the kind of the pain and suffering that goes into getting ready for a game that gets you ready for the final exam, if you will, which is the 3-hour broadcast.
On the spotting chart, one note really quickly is in the preseason, Matt Taylor's spotting chart is a FedEx special.
It is.
It is the size of a poster board.
It is. No, it's a billboard. It's actually a billboard,
It is actually a billboard that you have to run down, to the FedEx on the south side, get it custom printed because you have so many guys. So I think this is the championship for play-by-play guys when you're I have a 53-man roster
really
that I have
is.
to worry about. This is incredible. I have an official depth chart that
really
I can
is.
lean on.
Going, only having to memorize 6 wide receivers compared to 37, seemingly, and 15 tight ends. Obviously, I'm being facetious, but no, when you do get that first regular season roster and that depth chart, you're just like, where did everybody go?
That first regular season practice, I'm like, that we
Yeah,
go out there
it feels
last
like no
week,
one's
and I'm
there.
like, where is everyone?
100%.
In Philly, I was like spotting, and I'm like calling out like 47. And Mate's like, "There's no 47 on here." Like, but Philly had added a guy the day before.
That's right.
Like that always happens
That's right.
in the preseason.
Yep. Got to fill in that flip card there with some of the roster moves. Okay,
No such trouble this week.
Speaking of roster moves, none are happening as we speak right now, so that's good. We have a pretty good idea of who's going to be out there on Sunday for this Colts team week 1. But let's make some bold predictions. JJ, you're going to hammer these just like Larry is. I have a feeling you guys are going to be on the same page with a lot of these categories, if you will. But first bold prediction going into the season, I need your biggest rookie contributor for 2023 not named Anthony Richardson.
Do we go at the same time? Like so.
I mean, like it's we know who we're going with.
Josh
We want to say it
Downs,
on
right?
Josh
Josh
Downs.
Downs.
Yeah.
That's
so
like-
I'll let you take Josh Downs. I want to just throw some other guys out who I think will contribute.
I think when you look at the fit that he is within this Steichen scheme, he is such an asset for what he can be in complement to the athleticism of Anthony Richardson, the dynamic of this offense. He's a bit of a different type of weapon than we've seen within this offense in the last few seasons. And what was really impressive to me was he told me going into the Buffalo game that he missed like several months coming into start of training camp because he had that procedure, he had that knee injury that he was rehabbing from, all of that they were aware of coming out of college. And so those things that he had to work back into shape, a few of them, like most of it came really quickly to him because he has just such incredible speed. And the things where he didn't have that like large, climb up where you're like, oh, it's going to be this very gradual ascension. Like he came in day one and was making plays. And I think that you thought initially, oh, it'll take him a little time to come in because he didn't have as significant time in minicamp as some of the other guys did. But he and Anthony have an incredible
That's it right there.
That's that relationship that they have.
Yep.
Incredible trust between the two of them. There's this like unspoken communication that I think is going to be really exciting. I mean, you kind of think about, and you don't want to draw too many comparisons, but think back to from the get-go, out of the gates, the Luck-Hilton connection and what that looked like, because you had two guys within the offense, same draft class, who came right in, and they just immediately clicked together, and that's something that I see as being really exciting for the offense.
The way that Josh Downs sees things is so impressive. I mean, you can tell he's a coach's kid, right?
Yeah.
His dad's a coach, has played in the NFL. And it's that unspoken bond you talk about, Larra. Like they both see a coverage, and it's, okay, if they do this, you do that. And Josh Downs does a lot of stuff on like option routes where you read the coverage and you run a route based on the coverage.
Yeah.
And that connection he has with Anthony on those, that's so important to not have to, rep it and say like, okay, if they do this, like I need you to do this. It's sort of like, yeah, we both already know like what the other one's going to do. The guys I want to highlight here, since we talked about Downs, I have three guys who I think are going to contribute.
I got Jalen Jones.
Jalen Jones.
I knew it, yeah.
Like right off the bat, he's the cornerback out of that group of the three who the Colts drafted who was the most available during camp.
The GM
Most
acknowledges
available.
the GM acknowledges Jalen Jones during his press conference.
As the reason why Darius Rush is no longer on this team.
Most available, which goes into health,
Yep.
consistency, and I think early on too, defense and special teams.
yeah.
Yes,
So important.
100%. And he's not going to probably start from week one.
Yeah.
But, look, Juju Brents, who's also on this list, him and Jones are going to be pushing Dallas Flowers and Darrell Baker all season. Those guys are going to continue to compete in practice, and you see the talent that they both have. There might come a point where the Colts we need to figure out a way to get these guys on the field, not because of anything that maybe Dallas or Darrell are not doing well, but because, man, I mean, they're making play after play. And I think, Mate, you're right. The special teams, huge part of it. Next guy going into that is Evan Hall.
Yeah.
For me. I don't know if you guys caught it last week. Jim Bob Cooter, the offensive coordinator of the Colts, was talking about Evan Hall and said he was pleasantly surprised with how Evan Hall has picked up some stuff in protection. Mm-hmm. Like for rookies, they usually don't do a lot of that.
Yeah.
College, you come in, you don't do a ton of stuff in protection. Maybe you'll block a linebacker if you know a blitz is coming, but it's not as intricate as you're going to get in the NFL.
He had a huge win in Philadelphia.
Oh, I mean, he rocked that dude, that blitzer coming in.
I was on the sidelines like 50 feet away and felt it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome.
But like you want to get on the field as a rookie running back who maybe isn't going to be the number one guy. You got to block.
That's a surefire way to not see the field
Exactly.
if you're not
exactly.
good at it.
And
right?
Evan Hall's he's a very good pass catcher. That's established coming out of Northwestern. He had 88 catches his last 2 years there. But he's a guy who, if you say, all right, hey, maybe he's your third down back to start off because you trust him to go block a blitzing guy, help out Anthony, who Anthony's going to see blitzes he's never seen before. And it's going to be on the O-line to get the protection right, but then Evan Hall to get that block correctly and go at the right angle and keep that guy to Anthony's face. I think that gets him on the field. In addition, then, to you can throw him the ball and feel comfortable that he's going to catch it and make a play on it.
I want to double back to the Josh Downs conversation, and this is just sort of a tangent, but what I think...
Are you doubling down?
I'm doubling down
Doubling
and
downs.
doubling back, right? So I'm all over the place here, okay? Like I'm driving the car the wrong way, going down 37, I'm going south in a northbound lane. But I think he represents a skill set and talent the Colts just have not had on their roster in a long, long time, that true slot receiver. Obviously, Isaiah McKenzie can do a lot of the same things, and they're kind of interchangeable to a degree. We've talked a lot about how they have different skill sets, right? They're not exactly the same player. No two players are. But I think what Downs has to bring to this offense and what the Colts desperately need within this offense is yards after the catch. I mean, last year – The Colts number as a team collectively from their wide receivers last year, their yards per catch, I think was like 9.7, which was, I mean, I think that's a franchise low number. So they need, I mean, they've got Pittman on the outside, who's obviously a great possession receiver, that big body guy. Pierce, we think, is going to be that designer, go route, go ball, right? Go up and get it on the sidelines type of receiver. But they need big plays from their slot in terms of Josh Downs being able to go 7-8 yards and turn that into a 15, 20-yard explosive play and a first down to help the overall efficiency of this offense. And, again, a skill set they just haven't had for a long time.
And I think for all that we have seen,
I never know who to look to, by the way. You know,
We're working
I'm like
through
this
it.
linebacker head on a swivel, you know? That's what I'm doing right here.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I think that for all that you see on display with Josh, with the incredible speed and this phenomenal route running and the hands and all of those different things, like what allows him to do exactly that is he has this inherent like nastiness about him. Like, I mean that in the best way possible. Like, it is a grittiness where he's a dog. Like, he's going to go toe to toe. He's going to battle guys. He's going to toss people, you know, like off his body, and he's going to fight. And I think that that is something that, especially as like a passionate, fiery, young head coach, that's what you want to build your roster around. You want to build your offense around kind of guys who are willing to do those type of things, because Josh Downs is not afraid of a matchup that he's going to have coming in.
Very instinctual player. Runs very good routes. And as I think you said it, great rapport with Anthony Richardson so far. Those guys are roommates in training camp. We know about the story in the spring in the parking lot, hanging out, throwing the ball around. All right, staying with you, LO. Breakout player in 2023. We're making bold predictions for the entire season. I need the breakout player for the Colts in 2023. Either side of the ball. Doesn't matter.
One of the topics we have spent so much time on this offseason, what have we talked about? Colts need a pass rush, right?
Indeed.
Consistent pass rush.
Yep.
My guy's Kwity Paye. I think that this is the year that you see Kwity have that breakout year. He's been building toward it. You certainly have seen games where he has been an incredible force on the edge. I think this is the time where, especially health being a significant factor for him, being able to stay on the field, I think that will lend it to this being a huge year, and it needs to be. You need to have that established kind of wrecker off of the edge. He's had time now playing beside Grover Stewart and DeForest Buckner, and, you know, last year it was Unique Ngakoue out there as well. Now I think it's really Kwity's time to shine and embrace being that guy.
I mean, Kwity had 6 sacks in 12 games last year. It really is, for me, the health.
Yeah,
that if
missed
he
5 games.
Right. If he can be on the field for 17 games, and like hearing from him this offseason, like that's something that really ate at him. And it really kind of motivated him.
He trimmed down,
Right,
he said.
yeah.
He said he lost some weight. He could see his abs again. He also said, too.
What's that like?
Yeah. I'm going to pull this shirt up.
Direct quote from 51. I can see my abs again. He also said, I thought this was telling, that he wasn't solely a power rusher. He can now also be a speed rusher.
He's got that
was
spin
an
move
element.
too, yeah.
That was that element that he'd been incorporating. And you talk about like instinctual players and smart players. Like I do think Kwity has all of those factors to be a very special guy on the end.
I know you're going offense.
Yeah. So who did Chris Ballard mention first?
I think
Last week when
let me guess. Go ahead.
I just want to tee it up for the listeners before you take a guess. So last week, Chris Ballard's press conference was mostly about Jonathan Taylor, right? He was asked mostly about Jonathan Taylor. And he talked about how it's kind of a shame that we haven't talked about some of the guys who have really stood out this training camp. Who was the first person he mentioned?
I'm pretty sure it was Bernard.
That is correct. It is Bernard Ryman, who is my breakout player for this season.
I agree.
Some of the stuff you
saw
from
the part,
him,
man.
Oh, I mean,
he looks the part.
Like, he put on good weight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're talking about Kwity Paye. I can see my abs again. Like, you put on good weight. That's same thing of like, wow, it must be nice. I mean, he put on just like muscle, which I think is what we all kind of expected. You know, you get a year in, like he had last year, rookie year, and then you get the NFL offseason where you're not training for the combine. You're not training for your pro day. It's just you are training to play week one. Let's get you the weight you need, the muscle you need. Mm-hmm. And I can't remember a time in training camp where I saw him really get beat.
That's it right there.
I'm sure maybe there was a moment or two, but like everyone, but the preseason game against Buffalo where he just stonewalled Greg Rousseau, Leonard Floyd, those Bills edge rushers who they're playing some of their top guys. That obviously wasn't Von Miller who wasn't playing in that game.
Right.
But he looked really good in that game. Hearing from Chris Ballard about him, just like having conversations with folks around here, and it's like, you see what Bernard's doing? That if you get that left tackle spot solidified, or I'm not saying he's going to be a Pro Bowler.
He's not going to be perfect, right?
Right. But the thing with Bernard last year was he was good, but when he wasn't perfect, he gave up a sack.
It came in those big moments.
Right.
Unfortunately, his mistakes were accentuated because of when the mistakes happened.
Right.
Fourth quarter, 2-minute drills, games on the line, directly impacts the Colts not scoring.
Play-to-play basis, though, he was good. It wasn't like he was getting beat every single time he was out there, and it wasn't like he was getting picked on by opposing defenses. He faced a gauntlet of guys last year, too. You're talking about Alex Highsmith, Khalil Mack, some of those guys who they faced at the end of the year. I think what you saw from him last year, though, was he's a solid player who needed to get stronger, improve his technique. What have we seen from him? He's gotten stronger. He's improved his technique. I think that tees him up to have a breakout year.
And that's also a testament to the work of Tony Sperano Jr. and how well Bernard has taken to him. I mean, talk to any offensive lineman. If you want to get an offensive lineman in this building talking, ask them about Coach Sperano and the impact that he has made. And these guys will give you so much content because they absolutely love him. They play hard for him. And I do think that Bernard is going to be one of kind of the greatest recipients of the tutelage that Coach Sperano has brought in.
All right, bold prediction, last one before we get to Kenny Albert. Also, we're coming up. We're going to break down the lingering questions we have for this team. A lot of unknowns. Obviously, you fully just don't know about an NFL team. I mean, you got training camp, you got preseason games, but there's just things that you just don't know about your squad before you play an actual regular season game. Kenny Albert coming up. JJ, I need your most impressive defensive player in 2023. When we're sitting here doing this podcast on January 15th, let's say, after week 18 of the NFL regular season, hopefully within that podcast talking about an NFL wildcard game or what have you. But I need the most impressive defensive player for the entire year in 2023.
So I'm going to take someone who you might say, well, that's obvious, but I don't want to take this guy for granted, and that's DeForest Buckner.
Yeah, I was going to say, okay, so I was like waffling between three, so I'm glad you went first. Because that's certainly a guy who's in there.
DeForest Buckner is just really good. He's a really good football player, doesn't miss any time. He's tough as nails. He gets sacks. He gets pressures. He affects the run. He's one of the best interior defensive linemen in the NFL. And I think sometimes when you get a player who's this good for this long, and you're just like, yeah, Buck's good. Like, no, Buck's great. Let's just remember how good, like, top level of a player DeForest Buckner is and not take him for granted.
He's the leading sacker on this team since he arrived in 2020.
But, I mean, he's
as a defensive tackle.
He's had at least 7 sacks and double-digit TFLs every year he's been here.
Yeah.
Like, it's not just the pressures on the quarterback.
It's doesn't miss games.
Yeah, and then he doesn't miss games. It's the partnership he has with Grover Stewart, where you can't run the ball up the middle. I mean, that To me, it's DeForest Buckner, and until it's someone else, it's DeForest Buckner.
So Grove was one that came into my mind, of course, because of just this incredible, like, gradual progression that he has been on year after year. I mean, he's kind of that guy that everyone looks to as, this is a Pro Bowl player that doesn't get Pro Bowl votes because people just are not aware enough of the force that is Grover Stewart. So I like Grover in this conversation. The guy I'm going to go with, who is on a huge year, Kenny Moore II.
Yeah, I was thinking about him too.
Kenny Moore II. I think that this has been set up as his season to shine. He is now that elder statesman within that secondary. He has led that group for so long now. One of now the longest tenured Colts. One of the, when you talk about
defense, he is.
Yeah, exactly.
On
so
defense,
Ryan Kelly, offensively.
Yep.
And then you, of course, have Kenny. And I think with the group that he is now leading and the most veteran of, he's embracing that role as the leader. And he's had to adapt a lot. This is a huge testament to what Kenny has endured over the last year, the amount of growth, the amount of maturity he has shown. And I do think that this is a year where he's going to be called upon to do so many different things within this defense. And so I think that this is going to be an opportunity where he really kind of takes the bull by the horns and again kind of goes back to that Pro Bowl level that you saw him 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think Kenny did a lot of introspection this offseason.
Yeah, different guy.
Yeah, where last year was not, he didn't have a single interception last year, and that really ate at him. And, he admitted he didn't totally see eye to eye with Gus Bradley last year, but he, took some time away after last season ended, flushed it, figured out, okay, here's what went wrong, here's what I can do to help it on my end. Hearing Gus Bradley talk about Kenny Moore this year is like, this guy sets the pace of practice. He's a guy who, like you said, Larra, we're going to look to do a ton of stuff on this defense. Absolutely, because also here's the thing with Kenny is, Chris Ballard openly talked about how the Colts got trade offers for him. This is a big year for Kenny Moore.
It took a lot of conversations for him to just stick around.
Yes,
for him to
right.
be here.
And I think that he's kind of taken it as a challenge. And, all right, you want to finish your career out in Indianapolis? I think that sets him up now for a year that could get him there.
When I wrote down the word impressive, like when I was filling this out, the guy, when I just, like word association, impressive on defense is Zaire Franklin.
Yeah.
Because the dude just embodies
You want to talk about a guy we take
impressive.
for granted. You can talk
Yeah,
about Defoe.
right.
Like, I kind of feel like we kind of have done that with Zaire
100%.
a little bit.
Yeah.
I was just blown away. Like his comments, I know they're kind of in the past now, a good month or so, but when he showed up to training camp and said, anybody can have one good year.
Yep.
But I'm destined to not be a one-hit wonder, right? This ain't the Macarena, okay? This isn't, Your Love by the Outfield.
Whoa, 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 whoa,
What
whoa,
I Like
whoa,
About
whoa.
You by the Romantics, okay? We're not doing that. Zaire Franklin isn't a one-hit wonder. He's not going to be the answer to a trivia question like who led the Colts in tackles in 2022. He is bound and determined to not only back up what he did last year individually, but get this defense better in areas they've got to be better in.
That's
right?
why
Taking
he's a
the
four-year
football
captain,
away.
Yep.
too, because it's
You know,
not a
red
flash
zone.
in the pan season. Fourth year that
Right.
he's been elected as a captain on this team.
100%.
I wrote a big story on him where I talked to Bobby Wagner, who's the one who told him anyone can have one good season.
Yeah.
And he and Bobby have a very tight relationship. And something Bobby Wagner told me is he was like, Zaire's always had this in him. He's like, I would watch his film and be like, he's going to be good. He's just got to get a chance. And he got his chance last year, and now's his second chance.
That's where talent and hard work meets opportunity.
Yep.
And you do not squander that. I think we can all get a good life lesson out of Zaire Franklin and what he was able to kind of turn himself into, getting the first opportunity to start last year at linebacker. All right, 13 practices in at Graham Park. Joint work together with the Bears and the Eagles. 3 preseason games. There's still a lot that we don't know about this team. It's like Christmas Day or Christmas morning when you're under the tree, you're opening up all the toys, see what they can do, putting your batteries in, see how they function, see what kind of matches up with other things that you have. JJ, your biggest lingering question that you're most looking forward to seeing answered on Sunday.
All right, let me follow that line of thinking. Mom and Dad don't let you see the Christmas presents before Christmas
They're all
Day.
wrapped up, yeah.
I don't know what this offense is going to look like at all.
Yeah.
I've absolutely no idea, but I know I'm excited to see it. I know I'm excited to see what Shane Steichen's going to do when he's not holding anything back, because it's preseason, and why the hell would you put anything on tape in the preseason?
Especially when you have so much fresh that
Right.
you can use to your advantage from a gamesmanship standpoint.
I've been reading a couple things. Albert Breer wrote about this in SI. There are some people around the league who think the Colts are going to take some teams by surprise.
At least early.
Right.
Yeah.
Where, they're going to do some things that you don't – I mean, I don't know what it's going to look like. But, no, and the good news is neither do the Jaguars. Who knows? We'll see on Sunday. And that's going to be so exciting because, you can't really take a peek at your Christmas presents before Christmas. And Shane Steichen has done a very good job of hiding those Christmas presents before opening them on Sunday.
What do you got?
Did I do a good job with that?
You did.
Thank you.
Good analogy.
Who are your offensive playmakers?
Yeah.
That is my lingering question.
I mean, we didn't see a whole lot of Alec Pierce in the preseason. I don't think he had a catch. Anthony Richardson and the entire offense, they only played 9 series together. And in those 9 series over the course of 2 games, they didn't play against any starters on defense from either the Bills or the Eagles.
So that's it for me. Who are they? Who are your game changers
Yep.
on offense outside of Anthony Richardson? He's going to provide certainly those exciting moments, and he is going to make plays. But in terms of everyone else around him, you've got to see people start to emerge as that go-to weapon or those go-to weapons. So that's wide receivers, tight ends, running backs, everybody.
I think all good answers, and I know I talked about it last week on the podcast, and I hate to beat a dead horse, but it's can you rush and cover? You know, I mean, can you generate enough pass rush from your front 4? And, JJ, if you can't get it, how creative do you think you need to be under Gus Bradley to bring some more pressure? Because, traditionally he doesn't like to do that.
Yeah. Do you have to become more of a blitz-heavy team? Do you have to play more 2 high safeties to keep a shell on the defense? The one thing I will say with Gus Bradley is last year he did tweak some things in how he plays coverages, how he rushes.
Right.
He still is not, he's not going to blitz a whole lot. We know that about him, but Colts did some different things. You think about that game against Mahomes.
They kept him in the well.
And you talk about surprises.
Yeah.
I mean, Mahomes in that Andy Reid offense, they'd gone against Gus Bradley for the last 5 seasons, and all of a sudden Gus comes out throwing flamethrowers, and they hold the Chiefs to 17 points.
I also think it's advantageous to start this season that this defense has been having to go up against Anthony Richardson and a dynamic, athletic quarterback with an incredible arm, but playmaking ability with his legs as well. I think that's going to be something when you look at the first part of your schedule and you're talking about Trevor Lawrence and C.J. Stroud and Lamar Jackson, that is really going to help this defense, the fact that they've had to look at Anthony Richardson since, April, or I guess May, of course, when he got in the building and you started OTAs and minicamp. So I do think that that's going to be a benefit. And you've probably had to tweak some things based on what you were able to see and the looks he was able to give you in training camp.
Yeah, huge year for Kwity Paye, your guy that you picked on the defensive side of the ball. Huge year for Samson Ebukam, right? Let's see it in free agency. Let's see it. Again, Dayo Adangbo, and who is your NASCAR package on obvious passing situations? On those obvious passing downs, can you leave Grover Stewart in? Does Dayo Adangbo need a kick inside? Where does Tyquan Lewis factor into that? How much, how much of a propensity to blitz and send extra people do you need to have early in the season to generate pass rush? Because at times last year, that same unfortunate bugaboo that we saw in years past under Matt Eberflus, the high completion percentage, that crept into areas last year. You want to see that eradicated with the rush being able to help the coverage, especially in the back end when you have a lot of new faces, guys taking on much bigger roles. Dallas Flowers, Darrell Baker Jr., and then not to that huge severe of a degree, but you do have Julian Blackman
playing a new position,
switching positions, going from free safety to strong safety.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point, and we'll see. I'm so excited we're finally going to get to see it.
Only a few more days before we finally have
seriously, because I've been so agitated. I was texting Mayte because I was watching IU, and it's
it should be here.
I'm so ready to go.
I'm watching college football this weekend, and I'm like, I wish this were the NFL. 100%. I love college football. I wish this were the NFL.
Big year for the rush and cover. It's also a big year for our guest today on the podcast, Kenny Albert. As we said, 30 years, right? 3 decades calling NFL games. Not for 3 different companies, 3 different organizations, all for the same place. That would be Fox. And he's called over 475 games in the NFL. Only guy currently calling games for all 4 major sports in North America. NFL, Major League Baseball, NBA, and love his stuff on the NHL. So great conversation earlier today, myself and JJ Stankevitz with the great Kenny Albert. He's going to be on the call on Sunday. Colts and Jaguars, week number 1. We're going to see him at Lucas Oil Stadium. Joining us now, longtime NFL play-by-play man, 30 years on the job, in fact. 30 years this fall with Fox, calling NFL games. That would be Kenny Albert on the phone with us. Kenny, thanks so much for the time, man. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, guys. And it's really hard to believe that it's 30 years. I remember the first game like it was yesterday back in September of 94. So not sure where all the time's gone, but great to be headed to Indianapolis to get started this Sunday.
I mean, that's remarkable. I mean, did you have any idea in 1993, 1994, did you have any idea then that you'd still be doing it at the same place 3 decades later, still doing it at a high level for the same entity, if you will?
Well, it was such an exciting time back then. Back in late 93, Rupert Murdoch and his Fox network, which did not have a sports department at the time, decided to make an unconventional, unexpected, crazy bid on the NFC package, which CBS had owned for 35, 38 years. And when this was announced, I think sports fans and the sports media world were in shock because, like I said, Fox did not have a sports department. There were jokes about who's going to be up in the booth, Bart Simpson. And at the time, immediately they hired Pat Summerall and John Madden, 2 of the best all time, calling the NFL. And then they brought in Dick Stockton and Matt Millen from CBS as the number 2 crew. And the executives at Fox decided to take a chance on some really young play-by-play broadcasters at the time. And, I'm proud to say that, as you mentioned, I'm heading into year 30. Joe Buck was hired then. He's had a Hall of Fame career, 28 years at Fox and now at Monday Night Football. Tom Brenneman was 25-plus years at Fox. And Kevin Harlan, who was also part of that group, was only at Fox for 4 or 5 years, but he's had an unbelievable career at CBS and TNT. So I'm not sure I would have believed it if you said it back then, but Fox, made those decisions and took a chance on a number of us, and here we are talking about it 30 years later, 30 seasons later.
Kenny, this is going to be your 477th NFL Network broadcast, which I read your bio. That's 8th most all time, which is, what an accomplishment. What still gets you going through the process of getting a broadcast on the air and, presenting a football game to millions of fans watching around the country?
Right. Again, it's hard to believe. I know there's a gentleman in the Midwest who keeps track of those numbers and hit 450 a couple of years ago, and I guess closing it now at 500. But it's still so exciting to get ready, and I love the preparation. So, when I sat down, obviously I've been watching and paying attention and reading during the preseason, but really every Monday morning during the NFL season when I sit down and start the preparation, I have a checklist that I go through, similar to what you guys do, I'm sure, getting ready for every game, and it involves doing a lot of reading, watching prior games, preparing charts, going through press releases and statistics, and then later in the week, going to a team practice, which our crew will do with the Colts on Friday, and then we'll sit down with 4 or 5 players and coaches, and then we'll do the same thing with the visiting team when they get into town, the Jaguars on Saturday. And it's really a team effort. Myself, Jonathan Vilma is my analyst, Shannon Spake, one of the best sideline reporters in the business, and then our producer, Fran Morrison, director Brian Lilly, and then the broadcast associate who prepares all the graphics, Cody Novak, and Caden Pfeiffer, who's the associate director. So, we travel as a pack every weekend, and we all come from different places, and we'll get into Indy on Friday, and we'll be together until our flights take off on Sunday night. So that your crew really becomes like your family for the 18 weeks during the NFL season.
Yep.
I probably spend more time with them and have more meals with them than I do with my actual family. But to get back to the original question, I love the preparation. getting ready for the broadcast, preparing the charts, reading about some of the new players and coaches, obviously, and putting the storylines together. And then, like I said, we'll meet with players and coaches from both sides, and then we'll sit down on Saturday night and have our own production meeting and talk about some of the key storylines that we want to hit on. And, when you mention that number, whether it's the 30th season or the 476 games, just so many memories. I get asked often about favorite games, and I do have some in each of the sports that I've been fortunate enough to call. But in the NFL, there are moments that stand out. I had the game when Terrell Owens stomped on the Cowboy star, for example, back in the early 2000s. I had the Michael Vick 46-yard zigzag touchdown run in overtime early in his career up in Minnesota. The Victor Cruz 99-yard touchdown against the Jets to propel the Giants into the playoffs back in 2011. They eventually won the Super Bowl. So there are just so many moments that stand out, etched in my memory. And just last year, we had the crazy ending in Vegas, the Patriots-Raiders, the laterals and the Chandler Jones interception with no time left at the clock. So when you step into the booth on Sunday, on any given Sunday, as they say, you never know what you might see.
I always wonder this because I see what Matt Taylor does to get ready for a broadcast, and I didn't know this coming in from someone who had just covered, I was on outside media covering the Chicago Bears, and I thought, the broadcast folks at production meetings, they get the rosters together, and, that's about it. And the amount of work that, you do, that Matt does to get ready to put a broadcast on the air is something I still don't fully understand.
A lot of late nights, Kenny, right? A lot of late nights.
Kenny, do you find that, your friends, and, obviously you come from a good broadcasting family, certainly, but do you find, people who are even, you do how much work? And you only see the 3-4 hour product?
Right. It's a great question, and I'm not sure that people outside the world of play-by-play or broadcasting would even begin to fathom how many hours go into it. If it's Matt preparing for each and every Colts game or our crew preparing for the games that we go in to do on Sundays. I've never really added it up, but for a typical NFL game, it's probably 20, 30, 40 hours total.
Yeah.
When I put together, the time at home or wherever I might be Monday through Thursday on planes, in airports, in hotel rooms, in taxis, in Ubers, I'm always trying to take advantage of the time, reading whenever I can. And then, the Friday, Saturday when we're in the city and going to the practices and meetings and just sitting around talking about it. So the average fan would not be aware. We don't just show up at 12:59 on a Sunday with rosters and step into the booth. But, I always tell people, friends, family, and broadcasting students who might ask the question, we're so fortunate. I'm sure Matt would agree. Even though there's a lot of work and travel involved, I never really feel like I'm working. It's fun work.
Sure.
Watching other games and reading about sports and talking about it with colleagues. And if you don't mind me giving a quick plug, I have a book coming out in October, and I've been working on it for the last 3 years. Just received the first copies this past Thursday. So really exciting time. And I talk about a lot of the preparation. There's a chapter that I devote to what goes into preparing for a broadcast and the checklist that I go through for each and every game that I work.
What's the name of the book, Kenny?
So the book's called A Mic for All Seasons, and it's MIC, like a microphone, and the I in Mike is actually a microphone on the front cover. And, always thought about doing it. And then during the pandemic, when we were all home, not doing too much, put together an outline and started to write some sample chapters, and actually did it myself, no ghostwriter. I've always enjoyed writing and wanted it to be my voice, my words, and tell a lot of stories about some of the memorable games, including the ones I just mentioned to you guys. There's some travel tales, travel stories. We all have some of those in our back pocket.
Right.
Growing up, around sportscasting, as you mentioned, with my father and two uncles who were play-by-play broadcasters, and then getting my first job calling minor league hockey and riding the bus for 2 years, 6, 8, 10-hour bus rides with the team, and an experience that I look back on so fondly, would never trade those 2 years in for anything. And then the early years at Fox and, with the NHL and Madison Square Garden and working down in Washington as well, right up until I was able to include that crazy Raiders-Patriots game, snuck it in after the deadline. So it's a compilation of stories from the last 30-plus years, and hopefully you guys can check it out.
No, absolutely. Again, that is A Mic for All Seasons. The book is coming out soon with Kenny Albert, who joins us. Great segue, because you're the only broadcaster going right now, currently, handling play-by-play for all 4 major U.S. sports, NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and the NHL. I love your NHL stuff. I mean, I love everything, obviously, but I love how good you are NHL-wise. But you've had, with the NFL, you've done every team at least 3 times, some teams in the NFC, Kenny, at least 60 times. Do you know which team in the NFC you've done the most?
I know they tallied it up a couple of years ago. My guess would be I'll throw out the New York Giants,
right,
Atlanta, and Arizona as probably the teams that are up there as far as 50 or 60 times through the years. 30 years, it would only be 2 per year, right, for a specific team. So
right.
Once in a while, we'll get 4 or 5 games of a specific team one year. We actually had sort of an anomaly, 3 Colts home games 2 years ago.
I remember that, yeah.
As you guys know, things have changed a little bit as far as the television rules. So there are more crossover games, AFC games on Fox and NFC games on CBS. So we actually had your first 2 games 2 seasons ago, and then a late in the season game against the Raiders. But no, as far as the question, no, I appreciate the kind words about hockey, and so fortunate to have worked many years with NBC and now with TNT, and great partners in Eddie Olczyk and Keith Jones the last 2 years, and now Brian Boucher coming in this year. And we had the opportunity to call the Stanley Cup Final, Vegas and Florida. But no, real fortunate to be involved in all 4 with Madison Square Garden. I also do Rangers radio, and then fill in on some Knicks TV games. And
right.
As I cover in the book, actually, there are many others who have done all 4. I guess I'm the only one currently.
Yep.
And it's really a product of, the networks that I work for, Fox, obviously football, and then I do some baseball as well, and then hockey with MSG and Turner, and basketball for MSG. But
right.
There are so many other great broadcasters out there, that have done 2 or 3 different sports. Whether it's a Mike Tirico, Sean McDonough, Ian Eagle, I can go on and on. But I'm very fortunate to be involved and really love all 4. And one more note on the book, if you don't mind. The forwards, very honored to have had a couple of colleagues in the broadcasting world, but also, among the greatest athletes of all time, Wayne Gretzky and Walt Clyde Frazier. Wrote the forwards to my book, so
not bad.
It's kind of surreal. It's surreal to look on the cover and see their names on there.
Well, last couple ones from me. You talk about your father and coming from that great broadcasting family, if you will. I think the story goes your mom and dad gave you a tape recorder when you were like 5 years old to practice play-by-play, to kind of scratch that itch as a youngster. And then by the age of 14, you're keeping stats. You're the official stat guy, or stat kid in this case, for the Rangers, the New York Rangers on radio, for the radio broadcasts. Like, did you know, again, at 5, 6 years old, did you know, like, I was going to become Kenny Albert coming from the family that you come from?
Well, they did give me the tape recorder as a birthday present. I don't think they necessarily, I was never once told you have to do this or you have to go into broadcasting. But they did give me a toy tape recorder, and then I took it upon myself to start announcing games off the TV in my bedroom. And, just growing up around it, you learn so much via osmosis. And I equated to kids who have parents as doctors and lawyers, and so many go into their parents' professions, not in the broadcasting world, but in so many other walks of life. So, growing up around it, getting to go to games and tag along and keep stats for him, as you mentioned, it was just so valuable. And yes, I always wanted to do it. I remember back when I was, that age, 5, 6, 7.
Yep.
It was just so much fun, and I would bring my friends to games. And then the really big break, which I also write about in the book, when I was in 10th grade, growing up on Long Island. So this would have been January of '84. I was about to turn 16 at the time. A local cable station, Cox Cable of Great Neck, from a neighboring town, came to my school to film a girls' basketball game, and they had 2 cameras, a production van, and that was it.
Yeah.
So I was introduced to the producer, and he said, we don't have any announcers. Do you want to do the play-by-play? So I said, sure. They clipped a microphone onto my shirt, and I sat in the 3rd row, and all the people around me probably thought I was crazy talking to myself, but I did have a microphone on me.
Yep.
And then after the game, I chatted with the producer again. We spoke on the phone the next day, and he offered me the opportunity to call so many games the next 2.5 years, probably 75 to 100 games all around Long Island, high school, basketball, football, baseball, hockey, lacrosse, soccer, some Division III college games as well. And I felt like I had such a head start because back then you couldn't really do any of that until college.
Sure.
Now there are so many great high school programs. So
Yeah.
to the late Roy Menton, who hired me back in 1984 for Cox Cable, just an unbelievable experience. And I would bring my friends along as the color analyst. So they would help out, and really felt like getting those reps went such a long way.
Last one for me, Kenny. Just when you think about the scope of your career, so the first year Fox had the NFL, the starting quarterback of the Colts was Jim Harbaugh, who's now the head coach at the University of Michigan. He's 59 years old. Anthony Richardson was 8 years away from being born, and he's going to start this game for the Colts on Sunday. Just when you think about the scope of the athletes you've been able to tell their stories and broadcast their games from, the 30 years at Fox, just what kind of hits you of, you kind of being the voice and the person in the room for so many fans who have watched the careers of everyone from Terrell Owens, who you mentioned, through now the first game Colts fans watch of a guy who they hope is going to be here for the next 20 years is Anthony Richardson, and you're going to be calling it.
Well, it's funny you mention that because, well, first of all, I remember my first game so clearly. It was yesterday was the anniversary. It was on 9/4/94, and it was the L.A. Rams the year before they moved to St. Louis, and now they're back, obviously, hosting the Arizona Cardinals. Buddy Ryan and Chuck Knox were the head coaches. Jerome Bettis scored a touchdown in that game for the Rams before going to the Steelers.
Yeah.
But my first game in 96, year 3, was a Colts game, and one of the reasons I remember, I went on my honeymoon in August of 96, and when my wife and I got back to our apartment at the time, we had packages waiting from the teams for week 1, and it was a Colts game, and what I remember, I'm pretty sure Jim Harbaugh started that game. I save all my spotting boards, my charts. I could send you guys a picture of it. I could pull it out of my file cabinet right after we're finished up here.
Please do, yeah.
But what I remember actually was meeting for the first time in the production meeting Tony Siragusa as part of our preparation for that game.
Yeah.
And I would go on to work with Goose for 8 years. From 2003 was our first year together until 2011 or 12. So one of my favorite people, so sad last year when we all heard the news about Goose's passing, and I was so honored to deliver the eulogy at his funeral last summer up in New Jersey, not too far from where I live. But think about him each and every day, keep in touch with the family, and there's obviously the Colts connection. But I remember sitting with Goose in the production meeting, getting ready for that first game way back in 1996.
One other thing on that game, Kenny, that was Marvin Harrison's NFL debut.
Oh, wow. Okay. I didn't remember that, but I would have probably had that written down in my notes.
You had that.
I'm sure you had that in your notes.
You definitely had that.
But I will send you guys, as soon as we're done, I'll send you a picture of that.
That's great.
The spotting board from that game.
It's amazing. Long-time sports play-by-play man for Fox, NFL-wise, has been at the same place for 30 years, over 475 games behind the mic. He and Jonathan Vilma, Shannon Spake, they're going to be on the call this Sunday, week number 1, Colts and Jaguars. Anthony Richardson's debut, Trevor Lawrence on the field, Shane Steichen making his head coaching debut, all at Lucas Oil Stadium. Again, check out that book that's coming out soon from Kenny, A Mic for All Seasons, and I'm sure you can get that wherever books are sold. Kenny, this was a great pleasure getting to meet you on the phone, talking to you for the first time. I've admired your career and your work from a distance for a long, long time. Thank you so much, and we'll see you on Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium, and best of luck all season here in 2023.
Thanks, guys. I really appreciate it. Have a great season. I'll see you Sunday out at the game, and it should be an exciting year for the Colts. Watching Anthony Richardson on a day-to-day basis, Shane Steichen obviously coming from a Super Bowl team. So
Right.
hope you guys have a great year, and we'll see you there on Sunday.
I appreciate you. Storylines abound with Kenny Albert. Thanks again, Kenny. Again, great conversation right there. Kenny Albert from Fox on the call on Sunday. Colts and Jaguars, week number 1. Check out his book, as he mentioned there, A Mic for All Seasons, and just a wealth of knowledge, great stories. Obviously, he's been on the call for some signature moments over the course of the last 3 decades in the National Football League. Closing it out here, back again with Larra Overton, JJ Stankevitz. I'm Matt Taylor. JJ, hype it up. What are you going to be doing on Sunday? You're writing, you're talking, you're screaming third down.
Mm-hmm.
Larra, you're doing the same thing. I can hear you in my ear. I love every moment of it. Larra's like the air traffic controller for us on game day radio.
I'll have no shortage of like 15
we should
pages
have
of notes.
we should have like a separate broadcast channel, like ESPN
like the NCAA
does.
tournament.
Yeah, there should be like a separate channel where audio wise you can only hear Larra talking to me.
That's like a
worth it.
police scanner.
It is.
No
yeah,
one-
it is.
no one-
There's a crash here on the 30. Go to me.
Number
Larra,
45.
go! That's it.
In there on the crash.
That's it. No, but JJ, you're number 2 on the PA.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, excited to do it. Excited to get back in front of our, well, not really. You just hear me. You don't see me, thank God.
Yep.
In front of our fans at Lucas Oil Stadium, and excited. It's going to be a good atmosphere.
It
I mean,
really
it's
is.
Anthony Richardson's
It's a
NFL
sellout.
debut. It's a
Mr.
sellout.
Irsay just announced
That's
that
incredible.
yesterday, I think, on Twitter. So
AR's debut. You got the defending division champs coming in. Perfect Sunday at Lucas Oil Stadium.
now here's the biggest lingering
Is the
question.
roof going to be open?
Is the roof are the roof and window open? That's what
Oh, please, don't
everybody.
start.
everybody
Can't wait
wants
to check
know.
out Jim
Please,
Irsay on
please
Twitter.
Don't start. Oh, we got a long way to go. No,
Can we
but
consult Matt Gay? Would you like it open? Would you
Yeah,
like
there you
it
go.
closed
Yeah.
for the kicking circumstances?
go.
What would you like to
no,
do?
but this is year 5 for us together.
Yeah, this is season 5 of us together.
I did
It
the
is.
math the other day. If my math is correct, which is always kind of sketchy, but if my math is correct, I think the Bears game a couple of weeks ago in the preseason was my 100th game.
Man,
Hey, that's
I think
great.
when you factor
Move
in,
over, Kenny Albert.
Yeah,
Milestone
Coming for that
maintain right
record.
yeah,
here.
that's right, baby. I only got 30 more years to go. But between
That's awesome.
preseason, regular season, and playoff games, I think it was number 100 against the Bears. But
That's
5 of my 6 years have been with you, lady, and if you think our broadcast is okay or good or whatever, the reason why is because of the work behind the scenes, I should say, that she does on the field.
You are
on the sidelines.
much too gracious because there is no one more prepared that is on a mic and play-by-play
We
than
have
you
fun.
are. We have a lot of fun. Venturi up there as well. It is seriously like, it's what is the Marvin Harrison quote? Like, they pay me to practice, the games are free.
That's it.
Right? That's kind of how it is. Like, this is what it is. This is all of the buildup, and when you have an opportunity, and this is nothing I will ever take for granted. We take for granted DeForest Buckner. We take for granted Zaire Franklin. What we don't take for granted is the privilege of getting to walk on a field on Sundays in the NFL and
Yep.
get to call that
Yeah.
your job.
We
Because
do.
it's
We-
not a job. It is the greatest career and greatest gift so far professionally, and it's such a blast, and so glad we're back.
We work 345 days out of a year for these 20 game days that we get, including the preseason, which it does count.
That's right.
For a little
right.
bit.
What do they say? Life's a gift. That's why they call it the present.
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
If you're eating
Hey.
chicken
Food for
soup
thought.
for the soul.
Food for thought. Yeah, that's on your daily calendar, right? That's where that came from. All right, we're loaded up the rest of the week here on the podcast channel. Rick Venturi is back tomorrow. If you're listening to this on Tuesday, tomorrow is Wednesday. That's when Inside Football with Rick Venturi is dropping the blueprints to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars in week number 1. The rest of this week, Wednesday and Thursday, on our flagship station in Indianapolis, radio-wise, 93.5, 107.5. The Fan will have our daily updates. The Colts official podcast, not 1 but 2 during the regular season. We're coming back on Thursday. We'll have a Thursday edition of this same podcast. Myself and Casey Valier and Bill Brooks will join me later in the week to hype up the Jaguars game. Friday with JMV on 93.5, 107.5. The Fan gets you ready on Colts Happy Hour for the weekend's festivities. And then we're thinking with the 1 o'clock game on Sunday, instant reaction.
Oh,
with
that'll be
yourself
out
and
Sunday
Bill.
night.
That'll be a Sunday
That'll be
night
out Sunday
adventure.
night.
Absolutely. So a lot to get into audio-wise the rest of the week. and we hope that you enjoyed our first venture, our first foray, if you will, into the YouTube. So a brand new audience. They get to see Larra's lovely face. I don't know what you call this, JJ, no offense. But
It's the ugly couch. It's
yeah,
fine.
this is the ugly couch. Larra's over there on her own island, rightfully so. But thank you so much for joining us here on YouTube, the Colts Audio Network, Colts.com, and the Colts mobile app. We'll talk to you again on Thursday for the Thursday edition of the official Colts podcast, brought to you by WinBet. Until then, so long, everybody.